Welcome to Quantum Conversations, QCTV live stream for your higher self connection. Welcome, everyone. Yes, yes, yes. We are here in this month of December, and I am with our favorite astrologer, a shamanic astrologer, Erik Roth, who is here to talk about one of the greatest, biggest questions that we receive here on Quantum Conversations. What about this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction? We're talking all about this because this is a rarity and it's happening this month. Hello, Erik, welcome.
Hello, Lauren. Glad to be here again. I really look forward to these shows, and this is definitely a big conjunction coming up here on the solstice.
Well, as we've talked about before, this actually, the first conjunction set off a year into motion that we are almost done with that year, but it has been one of the most transformative years so far. Let's get a recap from you of what this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is. Pluto's involved as well, and why it's so important.
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is definitely a big question. There's a lot of astrologers have been looking at this upcoming conjunction as a really significant situation or event astrologically, and so this conjunction. I mean, I went back into looking at when was the closest Saturn-Jupiter conjunction to the December solstice, to the winter solstice here. And last time that happened was about 400 years ago, or over 400 years ago. And it was only about 4 days prior to the solstice when that conjunction happened. And we won't get another one anywhere close to this for another 150, 140 years or so. So I'll share with that a little bit more and later on, but it is pretty rare for a Saturn Jupiter, two planets that come into conjunction very regularly, have a very regular pattern every 20 years, but it happens in different signs, and it sets off a larger century and or 2 century time of where they switch from air signs to earth signs, or earth signs to air, or water signs. It depends. They go through these rotations, and so the rarer it is, the more significant it is. And the last time this happened in the sign of Aquarius was about 600 years ago. Granted, there was a pattern that it was ending at that point, and prior to that, we could look at the first time in this grouping that it happened was closer to 800 years ago. So we've got some long-term patterns finally coming back into sync. And yes, it's happening at the end, at the tail end of this unprecedented year of 2020, which, was definitely set up by this Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction or orb. They were really, from a shamanic perspective, they were in conjunction just almost the whole year. But in January, it was Saturn and Pluto, and then Jupiter came in, and they were kind of connecting with each other closely in the sky for the majority of 2020. And they're now slowly, Jupiter and Saturn are just slowly moving away from Pluto. So that's part of the significance of this particular conjunction and why it's so rare.
Well, I love it because anybody who goes outside in the night sky when it's clear and there's low levels of the lights from the cities, we can see the two brightest planets in the sky. And Mars is over there too, and that's all beautiful. But these two planets, right? These are the largest planets in our solar system. Can you share with us, remind us what each of these represent? Because not only are we going through this as a collective, this is also affecting each of us individually. You do readings for people so they can navigate through this. But for the collective, what do these two planets represent? And even Pluto for that matter.
Yeah, so Saturn represents growth through limits and boundaries. It's a planet that is connected to what we call our third dimensional reality, and to some degree a fourth dimension too, as it's also been called as the Lord of Time. But it connects us to that linear scape where we're taking a responsibility for our path and showing up and doing the work that we need to do in all facets of our life, which would include relationships, our calling in life, taking responsibility of, paying our bills, maintaining our resources, and fulfilling our life purpose. But it can feel like sometimes like a pressure, a stressor in our life. Saturn could, especially if we're going against our soul's intent, for example. Um, Jupiter is a planet that represents our path of enlightenment, our path of spirituality, and it's very expansive by nature, and it's strongly connected to our vision quest path, and it expands everything that it touches. So when it's in connection with with Saturn, which is a more contractive kind of a feel to it, but still kind of pushing us forward, if you will. Jupiter provides certain balance where it's not overwhelmingly contractive nor overwhelmingly expansive. And they're both worlds, from a shamanic astrology perspective, connected to the middle world or terrestrial world, this third dimension reality. And then you asked about Pluto, which very different from the two that I just described. This planet represents the underworld. It represents the place where we go to go through death and rebirth, where we surrender to our fears, where we have to face the truth of our soul, and where the ego doesn't really have domain, if you will, in that space. It's where that gets, you might say, decomposed, or it goes through a place where it gets shoved aside, where we're now in that sort of that clarity of the moment to deal with those powerful whatever sludge or toxins we might have within ourselves. In a larger scale, Pluto can represent that process in the form of the human collective, in the form of here in the United States, for example, we are in the beginning stages. 2020 kind of that unofficial marker of the beginning of that Pluto return for the U.S. And we're now still in that process of going through death rebirth as a nation. And so we're seeing that. We saw a lot of really powerful events that are shaping human consciousness and our society from up top to bottom here, and bringing up awareness of what is important, who we are, and our gifts, and what we really need to work on. Pluto helped, you might say, reveal the shadow that we had not put as much attention on as we could have. It revealed the toxin, it revealed the stagnancy or the sludge that was buried there, and now we have an opportunity to truly deal with it in a constructive fashion. And that's part of what Saturn's job is, to help us connect with the reality of whatever you might say Pluto is bringing up, so that we can deal with it constructively and practically, and like, okay, well, how can we do this for the super long term future here? This is all these cycles and rhythms are coming into connection synchronistically, and on longer term, that as you talked about the new Earth, we're at the crossroads of humanity. So this is we're in the middle stage of beginning an entirely new age in humanity. And the US, you might say, is beginning its own new age within the context of the collective new age. If whatever we want to might call that, it's here. I mean, it's going to take, it's a long-term process. It won't, we want it to all of it to start and be nice, by tomorrow, but it's going to take many years for us to truly get to that space. But we're making progress in that regard already. And I feel like we made some significant process in 2020 with the opportunities that we were given. Except that, of course, there are groups of people that resist awakening. They tend to not want to take responsibility for their own path, and tend to want to project that onto others and say, "Oh, you take care of that." And that's part of what could be holding us back, and why it can take a long time to get to feel like we're making any progress in this planet.
And that's why everyone listening to shows like this, doing the work, stepping up to the call of their heart, and leading a hand, lending a hand to those who are in their awakening process. It really is beautiful. We are in the shift. We are in the shift. And I
Yeah.
just want to restate what you said there, that we're in the middle stage of this beginning of a new age. And really, would you say that the new operating system, the new age, was really December 21st of 2012? And
No, not necessarily. That there's I can't speak too much upon that, except that it was part of the overall paradigm shift that we were experiencing. So it wasn't just it was that one day, but it was part of the overall era in which we were living in. And so, astrologically speaking, that time wasn't as nearly as significant, though it was important. It wasn't nearly as significant as what we're experiencing now. What we experienced in, well, I mean, 2012 did have a part of that role of, especially where we concern the other alignment that helped define the age in which we're living in, the Pluto Uranus square that had been taking place for several years between 2011 and 2017, 2018 period. And now we're moving into more of away from that zone and into this, as we discovered here, that really started up in 2019 with Saturn and Jupiter getting really close together in 2019. And then Saturn finally coming around and conjuncting Pluto in January of 2020. So yeah, if we want to paint it even a larger picture, there's a different way of measuring this called the turning of the ages, which has to do with the sun and its positioning at the solstice on the galactic center. And the center point of that mathematically happened in 1998. Or is it 99? One of those 2 years. I always get the numbers confused, but it's around that time mathematically. But the entire period from 1962 to 2034 is this 1 degree zone of the turning of the ages, where that sun kind of sits in that space at the solstice. And for Saturn and Jupiter to be conjunct only 1 sign away at the time of the solstice, it's pretty significant. It's definitely a very rare situation, and it's a connection to that space. And I know some astrologers, like for example, Kaylin Castell. She likes to take that even farther as a 144-year period that goes back, like whereas 1998, 99 is the center point that goes back all the way to another few decades into the early part of the 20th century, and then further into the 21st century. So this coincides a little bit. There's some overlap, but quite a bit with the end of the Kali Yuga, which is the ancient Vedic calendar system. We're in the end of the Kali Yuga. We're in the end of this dark age of humanity, which is intended to end 2025. So we've got some time here between now and 2025 that's still in this kind of this, I say, dark age of humanity. And then we move into a multi-century transitionary period. But because we're so close to that end, when it comes to that zone from a shamanic perspective, we're kind of in that transition. So there's no like a clear boundary of just like one day it ends and then one day it begins. It intermingles a lot in that space. So we're at this really critical juncture, and it continues to get more critical. And I believe that the at least here in the U.S., we definitely made some important choices of what kind of a future we want in November. And I think that's going to be of great benefit to our relationship to the earth and to our future and to the betterment of humanity ultimately. But again, there's a lot of stuff that has to be cleaned up in 2021 and beyond. And I was talking about how the Saturn-Jupiter Aquarius has also uh, a it helps connect us to a what we call cosmic view, so that being able to see the whole as sort of like from as if we were on an airplane or an eagle sees the ground, that we're all intimately connected, that there's no separation, that we're all one, might say one tribe, if you will, with Mother Earth. And this, I think that Saturn and Jupiter, this conjunction, and what is going to help us move into that space, that Aquarius energy is going to help us become, have a greater awareness, have a greater realization of, that relationship to Earth, and that we have to continue to take action to better that relationship in the future. So Vesta, this is another thing that I have been talking about too in Virgo, and spending about 9 months in that sign has been also part of that formula. Not as big as the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, but part of it. I would really like everyone, if you get opportunities. I know this time of year for some parts of the country can be in the U.S. here, trying to go out and see the sky. I know up here in the Northwest, we tend to have a lot more clouds and rain. But for everyone to kind of connect on that day meditatively and just simply set some intention for yourself and your, you certainly maybe certain kinds of efforts around, bringing peace and or sort of fulfilling each of us at our own authentic expression, and really being able to realize our own inner truth, not a particular, say, a fantasy or an unreality, but the reality that which we live in. And how can we bring out the best in all of us through that process? And I think that Saturn Jupiter conjunction and what will result in 2021, which we can talk even more about that in a future show, especially the Saturn Uranus aspects that are happening next year are part of that expression. And I'm partly excited, but also wonder what surprises await us in 2021 because of Uranus, and perhaps what breakthroughs that we may end up experiencing for ourselves.
Well, that is really exciting. Thank you for the clarification on that, because, here we could say 2012, right? December 21st, 2012. But what you just shared is indicative of the great cycles of time coming into alignment well beyond just the 26,000 year or the 2600 year in precession of the ages and the equinoxes, right? And so I remember, hearing about the Kali Yuga. That's a long cycle. How many years is one of those Vedic cycles?
I would have to look up the exact amount. I do have some,
but thousands, right? 25.
It's many thousands of years. Yes,
many thousands. And so it was
right.
kind of depressing when we heard, wait, we're still in it. We're not. It's not going to come. But
we're really close to the end. We're just at the very tail end of it.
And, that's the tipping point. And I just want to cry because that's really, we'll say it one more time. That's why all of us incarnated at this moment of time. And you're really on a mission to empower people with this knowledge in their own charts so that they can see the road signs, where to step up, where to maybe come inside and nurture some of the ideas that they have, right, with what's going on in each of their charts. I want to recap some of the words that you said in this great cycle. And since it's happened in Aquarius, the last time this happened in Aquarius 200 years ago, wow, it's amazing. So, you said balance. I'm just going to share these words because it helps us understand, right? Responsibility for our path. Responsibility for our path. Um, Saturn with the growth through limits and boundaries. Is this removing limits and boundaries from Saturn then? Is Saturn helping us remove limits and boundaries?
No, it's actually helping us work with the limits and boundaries in a constructive way. Not that it's there to just hold us back, but for example, I use this sometimes in readings and in descriptions. Like when we are, let's say we're growing a tree and we put some guideposts to the left and right of the tree, and they have maybe some twine to help guide the tree upwards in a particular direction. That's kind of what Saturn does, and it can help create a stronger root, a stronger foundation and long foundation. And for the tree, in its own root system, for example, if you're planting it like on the side of a sidewalk, to make sure that it's, because it's a human construction, it's kind of in that space there to help guide it. And that's essentially what Saturn can do. Another image of Saturn is, let's think of the shell, of a seed, and it's underground, and it's having to come out of that shell and get through the soil. Well, there's a lot of things going up against it in order for it to finally break the surface of the soil, and that's kind of that passage for the seed point to come through into that, or even in the womb when a child is being born, it's through that passageway so that it can come out and be, breathe life. And so we have this. That's what Saturn represents. And again, it's not there to impose restrictions just to impose restrictions, but there is a purpose behind it to help us become more of who we are in a healthy way.
Yes. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. So then other words from this grand conjunction would be surrender to fears. And I think we're seeing really we can trace back all fear in our life and really get rid of it. So I love that. And the whole death and rebirth, or revealing the toxins, right? Revealing that which doesn't serve the highest good. These are all coming up, and it really is amazing. And so no ego either. I mean, you mentioned no ego. This is truly being in the heart. It's like a new operating system, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when we look at Pluto specifically in the death rebirth process, and how it puts an ego in check, if you will. That no matter what we're doing we might try to force something to happen that is toxic and ends up not working, or what used to work. Maybe we've completed the picture, and Pluto can help us sort of like allow it to die, if you will, in order for something new to come into our life.
Yes. Well, again, look at the change. We've used a word pivot to describe this year, flexibility, right?
Yes.
And so we can feel those effects of Pluto then. Letting go, really. So it really is good. If folks wanted to connect with these planets, what do you recommend? is there a way that we can meditate to connect with the planets? Just simply go outside. There's a phone app. We'll talk about a phone app. You might have your own, but these are
Yes.
beautiful ways, if you can't see the stars at night, to use your phone, our beautiful smartphones, and look up, and you can see where our constellations are in the sky. But if we wanted to connect as a meditation, what would you say that we could do for all three of these planets at this point?
Oh, yes. There's many different approaches that one can take, but knowing where the planets are, kind of putting your attention towards that direction. Right now, these planets are in the south to southwest area of the sky. And as you mentioned earlier, Jupiter is drawing ever so close to Saturn. And right now they are only about 2 degrees away, less than 2 degrees, around 2 degrees away from each other. And then Pluto's about 6 degrees away from Saturn, and Jupiter's closer to, of course, Saturn than it is to Pluto. So if you look towards that direction, simply like you can think about even just get some basic definitions, astrological definitions of the planets, these three planets, and feel into it for yourself. If you're experiencing something of something you want to set and something concrete, something you like a new, like this is like being at the solstice, which is like a new moon for an entire year. But this involves, of course, the sun. And Saturn and Jupiter being in conjunction is a great time for planting the seeds for at least a 20-year period. And then it being in Aquarius and and combination with solstice, so that's a longer term process that will take place. So we're we talk about long term. So as you're going to the meditation, it's going into it from a place of long term, from a place of what could serve the highest good of oneself or family or the community long term, and going into it with setting an intent around what you want, how what you want to like accomplish for yourself, and how you can get aligned with what direction, what your path is. And it's all in this current reality that which we live in. And so it's meditating on those qualities, but you could also so I've done this myself, and even creating an altar space that has things that represent Saturn and Jupiter. You can even use like a cutout of a picture of Jupiter and Saturn, or for Jupiter's qualities, something that represents synchronicity, something that represents vision quest, something that represents expansion. And then for Saturn, something that represents sort of that growth through limits and boundaries, that resources, and planting the seeds for the long-term future. So you can use anything, pictures or actual objects. Sometimes you can, especially for Saturn, something that's really representing sort of a density and a solidity, like granite or something solid, a block or something. And for Jupiter, it's a little bit lighter. Can be even like you can maybe even use a balloon that expands and goes upward. For Pluto, it's much more about the detoxification process. So, a person can use something that maybe symbolizes, hey, I'm going on a fast, or, symbolizes maybe a phoenix, for example, or a chrysalis stage of the composting of the one form into the new form, and the rebirth into the new form to become the butterfly. So and you can use this as images on an altar space to set an intent for yourself. Now, a person could do this at any time in their life, especially if they are in a particular, let's say, a personal transit with any of these planets. I always recommend to clients to connect with that part of themselves. You mentioned an app. To look at the night sky. Connecting with the night sky is is the resource that just about everyone can use on some level. And even if it's cloudy, you can at least connect with the direction that these planets are located in. So that if you have an app, I use an app called, I have two apps, actually, I probably have more than that I use. Stellarium, Stellar, IUM, so the word stellar, IUM. And then I have Mobile Observatory, which is another one. I know some people that use like Star Walk. And then there's other apps that can help a person orient toward where these planets are located. And what's interesting about it, I didn't know if you wanted me to share my screen at all.
Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing on those apps. Those are really good. Star Walk, I love. It's got music. It'll calm you down. And it's really cool because you can see the elliptical, right?
Yep.
You learn more about your cosmic space out there. It shows you where the constellations are, and it really is fascinating. But again, the balance with this technology and nature, we recommend to use it to open you up to the great cosmos, to be able to look in the sky and recognize that's a planet, not a star. And that's why these apps help you. So they're a good tool, but
Yes.
eventually we want to just look in the sky and really tune in that way, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll help kind of guide you to give you some basics so that you can start to recognize certain things, especially if you go out more frequently. You can start just to, even on a basic level, start to recognize things when the moon, is in certain phases and you're following the moon's phases. And then when it passes like a planet or a star, it'll give you that greater insight. Oh, that moon is with that Saturn-Jupiter, alignment there. Let's take that'll give us a compass that's pointing toward, our directional arrow that's pointing toward those planets. So the moon can be a way to guide us toward that. So yeah, did you want me to, do I have the power to
Yes.
share my screen?
You have the power.
All
Thank you for
right.
that. And again, we'll talk about personal transits with all of these planets. Again, the sessions that you offer for people, you've got a couple of options. We'll talk about that later. Show us some images. This is exciting.
All right. Here we go. And Lauren, can you see that?
We got it. Yes.
Yes. So this is the evening of the 21st. So the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happens, mathematically just I think about 6 to 8 hours after the actual solstice, and that's again the closest one. Now, if I probably did more research and went back even further, many more thousands of years, I bet I can find another date where it happens. But it just shows how rare that is for it to happen. So what we're seeing here, I've got this graphically enlarged here of Saturn and Jupiter, and it's between two constellations, the Archer and the Goatfish. So astronomers still call this Sagittarius and Capricornus, but sign-wise, this is the seasonal point of where Aquarius is. So if I drew a line from sort of the top here horizontally and going down diagonally here onto the bottom, that's roughly the boundary between the sign of Capricorn and Aquarius. And they're just now entering this, and they're going to be spending a lot of time in the area of this constellation here of the Goatfish, which has its own powerful symbolism. But this is an area, I talk about this in a recent video, this is an area where there isn't any major stars or star constellations. So what the ancient Greeks called unformed stars, which meaning this is an area of creation, an area of that you can make manifest what you want. You can tune into it as a kind of a sandbox of creative activities. And since it's Aquarius, it's the insights there come through the leading edge. So avant-garde material. It could even be innovation in technologies, innovation in our own consciousness and expanding that frontier into the future, and inventiveness, humanitarian energies, um, a kind of a cosmic wisdom that can be downloaded, that kind of energy.
That's so awesome. I think lots of people are getting downloads. Actually, since the 1111 gateway, that seems to be a very powerful activation, like crystalline awareness of our steps and downloads. Isn't it amazing? We have set the stage for this avant-garde, innovative solutions and new systems. I
Yes.
really think that's why we encourage everyone, as we hold our vision of New Earth, to get really wildly creative with solutions. And we're seeing the cosmos support us in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I follow developments in various sciences, if you will, or innovator of different industries, or just people and organizations and what they've been creating or inventiveness. We're in this zone of just finding a lot of solutions to society's ills. Uh, it could take many, of course, many years to come up with these, but they're they're having breakthroughs.
Mhm.
And um, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius is helping us, will help us get farther along those lines. You might think, well, it's creating this sort of that window into the cosmos, and yes, I do feel that for sure. So we come into this space, and maybe some of us will be able to have our own breakthroughs, and especially society in general will be in a space to really nurture that, and
Mhm.
and allow it to grow fully into its maturation in the coming years. So yeah, I feel that very strongly, that this is going to be really vital. It's very significant. This is this Saturn Jupiter conjunction is just um, uh, one of the two or three major things that have happened in 2020 that is part of the overall like significance of this year. Mars even played a role this year with squaring Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter three times. From early this year, uh, or the middle of this year, sorry, to all the way until well, this will be in a different sign in January, but Venus played a role in November as well, and then Eris, a dwarf planet, also played a significant role and continues to play a significant role in bringing out, especially when it comes to the feminine, and the sovereignty and the voice, the sovereignty and voice of the feminine coming through. All of that is playing a significant role. And then to end the year, essentially ending the year on the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, it's hard to paint a more active year than this year astrologically. I mean, there hasn't been that many years that show up very as strongly as this year, as what we call great events, um, as this year. And of course, this is definitely a really powerful element to the field this year. But it also sends in a new wavelength, a new frequency, and it being just by being in that first half a degree of Aquarius, 0 degrees 29 minutes. That's the first half a degree of that sign. Um, is absolutely profound. That's setting the
Yes.
stage for 2021.
I mean, we're really, I mean, 0 degrees, almost 0 degrees Aquarius on December solstice is fully anchoring in the Aquarian age. It's here, right? Um, so when we look in the night sky on December 21st, 2020, That's going to be amazing to see those two. It'll almost be like two glowing orbs, if we can view it at that night,
Yeah.
will be on top of each other almost.
Yeah, they will be so close together that they will look like one light
Wow.
to most observers.
Now, I know you've got other slides, and feel free to share those. Let's talk about the great significance of the December solstice. Each year, this is in alignment with the great central sun. You mentioned that it was like a new moon for the whole year. And so 2020, with the great transformation, and here we are with the Aquarius at 0 degrees moving in on this date. Um, what's going on with this cosmic light? I mean, this is receiving new frequencies.
Yeah, absolutely. So the solstice, as I was mentioning before, and we could maybe add a little more detail here, but the the sun moving into that space. In fact, it's kind of off the screen here. I'd have to bring up another program to show you that solstice point, but it's in this area of the sky where we have what is called the galactic, the thickness of the galaxy, galactic bulge, and it's where the galactic center is, where the black hole is. And that's where the solstice essentially takes place, right within a degree or two of that point. And it's also been known by many cultures for thousands of years, especially prior to the rise of you know technology, certain kinds of technologies, electricity, and the rise of uh, monotheistic religions. Long before that, they've known this area of the sky as the Golden Gate, the gate where souls go after living here on Earth. They go through into that space to be rebirthed. So they go through that zone, and this is again for the sun to be lined up here on the December solstice. This is the first time in 26,000 years that we've had this happen like this. So it is a really powerful moment, and how rare it is for us to experience. And yeah, it is this solstice means sun standing still. So it's the still moment before the rebirth of the light, and the sun is energizing that space and allowing us to connect with it. And it's that solstice was a powerful, and continues to be a powerful time to do ceremony. It is where some cultures started calendars. Was at the solstice. Some started the cross quarters, or between the equinox and the solstice, like at Candlemas, or Samhain, depending on what whatever culture you might be looking at, or what they're doing. But for that to happen right there on the solstice, and it's for us. We can tune into that each individually and connect with it, regardless of what personal cycle or transit we might be experiencing. This is for all of humanity. This is Earth and its alignment with the sun, and alignment with the galactic plane, all lined up right there. And we get to take advantage of that. We get to energetically, spiritually, we get to take advantage of that. So it's up to us to what we want to forge in the future.
It's up to us. Well, it's exciting. Thank you for sharing on that. Yes. Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to just to kind of just in case that some people had questions about the years. So
yeah. You know what? Here's an interesting question. I'll wait until you're done. I've got another interesting question, but let's do this
yeah.
first.
So the nearest 2020 conjunction to the December solstice was 1603. So in the last 1,000 years that I
Mm,
went back, was happened on December 17, 1603. So about 4 days before the solstice. And then the next time this will happen, as close as it is,
mm,
Saturn-Jupiter in conjunction will be 2159. So about 140 years in the future. That'll happen in the sign of Scorpio when Saturn and Jupiter will be conjunct then. And then the last time Saturn Jupiter conjunctions took place in the sign of Aquarius was between the years of, there were four of them, 2026, 1226, 1285, 1345, and 1405. And it's just in 1980, 81, just started a rotation going through air signs. Although in 2000, it was in the sign of Taurus. So it hadn't quite, it's kind of in the in between zone between earth and air. But now we're going to be, all the conjunctions over the next century at least are going to be in air signs, Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. So those are the signs that will be activated. So the air meaning sort of a up and out experience, a more general evolutionary track or connection to the cosmos, to the mind and the cosmos. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify those years and just share that with everyone here. You have a question?
Yes, a question coming in from our audience on our
Ah,
YouTube channel. I don't know if you can speak to this, but here is, some are saying, let's see, can you provide info about or thoughts on the Mayan calendar being based on 13 months? Making predictions for 2012 was really for 2020. Have you heard of that?
only vaguely. I haven't
Okay.
studied all of the Mayan because the Mayans had a lot of different calendars.
Yeah.
So I don't know specifically, like they had even had a calendar that was just based on Venus and Venus's cycle. Um, and then they had the long count, which is the one that has to do with the one that calculated to end on the December 21st, 2012. So I know I have heard other, in sort of in the grapevine of mentioning that it was intended to end on 2020, but this is not, I don't look at this as a kind of a, you might say, an end. I look at
Right.
this as sort of that transition into
Mhm.
into a new world, if you will, a new paradigm, and
Mhm.
that's part of that experience. So unfortunately, I can't comment too much more on what I just shared there.
Okay. Well, we are in the transition and we do it with ease and grace, and we do it with the foundation, the infrastructure of the old earth, right? We don't want to start completely from scratch. We want to do it with ease and grace. So awesome.
Yes.
Now, here is a comment. Some are saying that the December 21st conjunction will form the Bethlehem star. Do you have any comment on this, or perhaps what this may mean from a shamanistic view?
Yeah. So in the early part of um, around that first century AD or just before that, there are some astronomers who theorized that there was a really close, really powerfully looking Saturn-Jupiter conjunction at that time, and that was originally considered the star of Bethlehem, and why the three elders of the Magi were connected to that. Um, and then, of course, we're looking at this Saturn Jupiter conjunction kind of in the same way. Well, I don't know if it really is the star of Bethlehem. I would leave that up to some maybe philosophers or theologians in connecting that, but it certainly has a really powerful vibration that perhaps could be connected to that on some level.
Yeah, all right. Beautiful. All right. Well, I see on your screen you've got major highlights of December 2020. Can you
Yeah.
share those with us?
Yeah. So a lot of what I've just shared actually. So Saturn and Jupiter, of course, they both ingress into Aquarius on the as we see here. We've talked about that. There's a total solar eclipse on the 14th, so that's just 5 days from now. We see the solstice and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. We have the third of 5 Pluto-Eris squares. So the third one happens tomorrow, December 10th. And then we have Chiron stationing direct, which is, where do I have that? December 15th. So let me go back up here. Okay, that's at close to 5 degrees Aries. And then we have Mars's conjunction with Eris, which I believe takes place. Where do I have that? There we go.
And Eris
Uh,
is a dwarf planet with the
yes,
divine feminine energies.
yes,
Ah,
yes. So that Mars Eris conjunction takes place December 22nd at 23 and a half degrees Aries.
that's
And then
almost like a balance with the male and female energies, yes?
yeah, I would say, yeah, because Mars is, one might even say there's sort of that strong, willful, especially Mars in Aries, strong, willful warrior energy, actional, mission-oriented warrior energy. And then Aries is kind of the feminine version of that, but has a little bit in the space of being like even a little bit of a trickster and sort of that there's a little bit more of the mental activity in Eris as opposed to what Mars brings in. But yeah, that's a powerful alignment. That's the third time this year they're going to be doing that. And then the next day, December 23rd, we have Mars square Pluto, and that happens at close to 24 degrees Aries Capricorn. So what I'm sharing here, I think, when it comes to the energy of December, that really we want to get beyond Mars moving through Aries and moving beyond the Eris conjunction and squaring Pluto, where I feel like if there's going to be any true opening up, it's it's going to start really more so in January and February because Mars will have been moved into Taurus by then, and it will have a different energy, different relationship with Saturn and Jupiter then as well. So that to me really helps us. We could even say feeling a weight lifted off of our shoulders a bit as we get into those winter months.
In
But
January, I mean, it already starts to feel like there's a weight lifted.
yes, and yeah, and December solstice, I feel like that's the real like first true like precursor, major significant precursor tone setter for 2021. And then when we get Mars into the sign of Taurus and beyond, and then later we have Mars Uranus conjunction on the day of the inauguration, Biden's inauguration. Mars and Uranus are conjunct in Taurus, and then we have later, Saturn and Jupiter moving farther away from Pluto, and that by itself is going to really help open up the pathways and make it even feel like, oh, we're going to be able to move again. We're going to be able to live our lives. So it's a slow
Interesting.
process that's going to happen, but we will get there.
We will get there.
Yep.
And we're doing it together. We're doing it as the collective. We're doing it in unity,
Yes.
unity consciousness. That's where we're moving into. We're seeing this year has given us all of the incredible opportunities to see where we need more unity consciousness. But, for the most part, people are beginning to care about other people, respect other people's space,
Hmm.
care about people who are not given the same opportunities, right? People experiencing homelessness. There's lots of people watching in new ways. And so these are all part of the great solutions coming forward, and why we always say, write your new earth ideas down, write them down, and actually do your natal chart, do your work, and find out how your astrology and how you can best move through these times for you. So
Yes.
that brings us now to personal sessions with you, Erik.
Yes.
People love these, and you've got a couple of options for the different variety that people need. If it's a full shamanic reading of 90 minutes, or even if it's a 30-minute update, this really helps people navigate in this time. So what would that be if someone comes and gets a session with you for like this December, January gateway? Do you do it in a like a 3-month period, or how does that work?
Well, it depends on how much they're really wanting, especially if it's their first time getting a session with me. It's, I would recommend a 90-minute session with me, and that's the $97 price. And that would include looking at their natal chart, just to get an overview of that, and then looking at their cycles, their transits, what the timings in their life. And sometimes during the, actually, I can do this for all charts, really, but sometimes they're, if they're new to astrology, there's a lot that's given to them, a lot of information. And so I recommend allowing that person to just let it soak in and to just allow it to breathe with that knowledge that they're getting. And maybe within a month or two to come back if they're wanting another half an hour or an hour, to set up something with me like that. I have a 3-session package for 220 that people can get, and they
That's
can.
like buy two, get one free. Thank you for
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
amazing. Those are 90 minutes each.
exactly.
That's
So, and you could
incredible.
spread it out over a year's time if you wish. Although I would recommend, spacing, not certainly not concentrating them all within a couple of weeks of each other, but
Mhm.
not, maybe spreading it out over maybe a 6-month period, maybe 3 to 6 month period would be more ideal, depending on how deeply you want to go into, because there are things in the first reading that I can't really get to on a deeper layer beyond some of the major issues, like some other discoveries that we could make together around, what is coming up. Like, looking at, for example, someone's personal stars, or some of these other alignments and their relationship to each other, and what that can reveal for the person can be really helpful and on their journey.
Yeah, right. And so you've got the 30-minute that's available for your current clients. So they have to come
Yes.
and do one of the hour or the 90 minutes first. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. For $50, they can do a 30-minute session. Um, yeah, and if you just, even if you just have, I've done this. Like, I've gone to, well, at some point, this will happen again, doing in-person holistic fairs. Um, well, I've just done 15 to 20-minute, what I call mini sessions, and I just give them the sort of the nuts and bolts, or if they have a specific question or two, then I can answer that. So if they're looking, like, I recommend not doing a 30-minute session unless you've had the full reading, but I won't prevent you from getting just a 30-minute session if that's all. If you're just looking at a specific question or a couple of questions, then I can get into that. But and then it could even inevitably lead to go, well, I need a more a longer session. So the 30-minute can end up leading into a 90-minute session down the road too.
Yes. All right. Beautiful. And so, as we wrap up today, you have been doing this for a while. What would you say excites you the most about the information that's provided to your clients and how you see them actually move forward in their lives? What excites you the most?
Uh, that the timings, the planetary transits, and how they fit into the larger scope of things, especially during this time when we have such powerful planetary alignments. That gets really exciting for me to look at each individual chart. Like, for example, if someone's got some personal point that's within a few degrees of this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, that's like, let's say their ascendant is there, or their moon is there, or their sun is there, or Venus. That could be really powerful transmission for that person. And I can really spend some time sharing about that for them in the context of their chart. So yeah, it's in that space that really gets me excited about tuning into their chart.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we invite all of our listeners and our viewers to check out your special offer that's available. On the link here, you can find out more about what those sessions entail and see the various options. And Erik is opening his schedule to accommodate you during this really great, powerful passageway of December 2020 and beyond, really. Yes. So awesome. Well, Erik, thank you so much for being here. This is exquisite. Is there anything that you'd like to share as we wrap up about then looking forward beyond this that you didn't already talk about?
Yes, just to share some that 2020 has and continues to leave a lot of what we call debris in our lives and in the collective. And it can, in a deeper level, humanity is going through a bit of trauma, and that it's okay to, give yourself some time to adjust and come through, because we're all experiencing it. We're all in the cauldron together, and we can co-create this future for ourselves. That 2020 is not a permanent state of affairs, that we're moving into I feel, a better future. But it will take some time to get there, and having some patience will be required. And just to take care of yourselves, treat yourself with love and kindness as you would perhaps others as well. It's really important that all of us do that, so that we can all fully engage within our future, within our Vision Quest path. This has been huge for us, these lessons that we're learning in humanity. So tune into that for yourselves, and if you need to cry, if you need to feel depressed and feel depressed, go into that space and find out where that's coming from. But know that that's not permanent, and that there is a light, and everything requires certain balance. And we've been into you might say, in the dark a lot this year. So there's going to be a recalibration in the coming months and years from this ending time.
And a hopeful message.
Yes.
2020 will be complete. But what a great transformative year. And we were all given so many opportunities for new balance. I'm crying because I know it's the truth. And I know it is, excuse me, but I know that there are some grieving the past.
Yes.
And we do take a moment together to grieve.
Absolutely.
But can we put the hope in the great reunion with everyone? The great reunion with everyone. The reunion in the heart. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, Lauren. Absolutely. I feel you.
We love everyone, and we thank everyone for being so patient here, and for dreaming so big and being here, showing up for New Earth. It's here and we're doing it. Erik Roth, thank you for this inspirational talk on the astrology of our times. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be of service here. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Yourself connections. Technical, here we go. Right. Here's our ending music, everyone. Thank you. Quantum Conversations QCTV live stream for your higher self connection.